Into the SorareData Strategy Show. I am Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare. Joined as always by Sean Newsham. You can find his PSU fans too. We went through a little bit of a rebrand because we were pretending this was a strategy review, a game week strategy review show, and we were spending like 95% of it not talking about the game week that we were just in. So we're just going to pretend that those titles never happened and that this is just a strategy show. And because of the huge news of what happened earlier this week with the Erling Haaland unique auction, we thought everybody has had their opinion, so we're just going to add on to it. But Sean, what did you do for this game week?
So here, I will actually talk about this game week since we rebranded it, right? It's a good time to talk. What was your thought process? Because you and I talked about it briefly yesterday in treating this the weekly special. Because like the prize pool for the weekly special was absurdly good.
It was drunk, yeah.
Really good.
I've had no success in the special weekly during AFCON, mostly because I've avoided putting like a good lineup in. I was just like, oh, I have guys and I'll throw in some extras. And yeah, you pointed out the prize pool to me. Like I had stopped looking because I was just like, oh, there's a bunch of like tier 3 super rares at best, so it's just not worth it. And because it's the final, I guess, they decided to blow it out. And it was like, oh, all right, let's see what I can put together. And I sent you the lineup. We were talking about like which guys. This was actually before we knew whether Egypt or Morocco were going to make the final. And then nothing else mattered because we know the third place game is going to happen. We have no idea like how they're treating it, but it's there. And so I sent you my lineup and you were like, oh, I have 2 of those 5 guys. The non-AFCON
guys were not from AFCON.
Right. The 2 non-AFCON guys were the same. And I was like, well, that makes me feel better. So I'm assuming your AFCON guys are better than mine. But I think the only...
play Marmouche?
Yeah, I didn't play Marmouche, no.
Oh, who'd you play?
I played Tolo and Tapsoba.
I played Koulibaly and Diallo. So, yeah, I mean, I guess all of our players were different. But
we both played Otavio and Hatate.
We did. I did. Yeah. I considered moving it. I considered moving it around. I was considering playing Big Bob Scoofs there, but I didn't. Well, they play beer shitters, so like, I mean,
yeah,
that should be a print fest. But yeah, it was interesting. I actually told you because I legitimately was like considering using like Morioka, Cruz, guys like that. Like I was legit considering guys like that in the lineup. I didn't go that strong, but I mean. The real like Octavia has a great matchup. Like he's a great spot. So is Hatate if he starts. I have a little bit of concern whether or not he'll start because he's been playing quite a bit.
Because he's just absolute fire so far.
Yeah, but like it would make sense if they just are like, here's a day off instead type thing because they've been playing a lot of games recently. But yeah, it was an interesting week. I actually had to put a lot of thought into how I wanted to treat that lineup and what I really wanted to do. I wish. That it was more clear cut. But then, I mean, like I said, I woke up this morning, my U23 D3, which is like the first lineup I set was obliterated. So that was fun. Luckily, I put Gravenberch and Anthony in the same lineup.
Oh,
so just got killed once, but I do have another Gravenberch that I also played because the matchup was just really, really favorable. So I had another one that I also played, and then Noah Lang, I took a risk. I didn't think he played. People were treating Noah Lang like he was going to play for sure.
Like he was questionable, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't understand why you guys are treating guys that's still in quarantine as of yesterday as a sure thing. I got to my challenger rare 4 lineup, and I literally put in Vonneken and De Ketelaere because that's just who fit. And I looked at my other options at forward, and it was like really bad, really bad. And I was just like, you know what? I'm playing a Bruges stack anyways. I might as well just throw Lang in there in case he plays and they go nuts.
Yeah, so I mean, I think if you're able to kill one lineup instead of 3, then that's obviously the way that you go.
I did luckily do both.
Yeah,
killed one instead of multiple, but then I also killed multiple.
Well, yeah. No, I just meant more with the Anthony and Gravenberch than. But yeah, I think there was a lot like my gallery for this time of season, basically like without MLS, is not that deep. And so playing the special weekly basically kills 2 other lineups I could play that are like somewhat competitive. And so it just felt like for given the prizes, it was just worth going for it. And I basically like went in. I have a Champion Europe rare lineup for this week, and I was like, oh, felt good about it. And like the first notification I got on the SorareData app was that one of my guys is on the bench, and I'm like, oh, well, that's just dead at this point. So, yay.
Yeah, I've been sick and tired. So what is the one thing I enjoy most in terms of like watching games with Sorare? You probably know what it is.
I assume when other people's guys are DNPs.
No. I'm talking about like what is the one thing I like to do in terms of watching games weekly with Sorare.
Seeing how your goalie concedes in the 92nd minute.
I like watching gank games. I enjoy watching gank. But I'm sick and tired of like throwing my most like best pieces with gank and then like a DNP happens or they suck. Like I threw like Morioka with him and then like he put up like 30 because gank almost always plays the last games of the week due to like whatever reasons. And I'm sick of my gank stacks being useless by the time they start. Sure. So I just threw everyone together in my I threw them together in gas 3 because I'm like, you know what? I want to watch the gank game on Sunday at 3 p.m. and I don't want it to be dead by Sunday at 3
already. Yeah.
So I threw in like Vandevort, Munoz, Hanen super rare, Bongonda super rare, and Ito rare, just so I can be like, yeah, I want to watch that game, and they should all start.
Well, it's nice not being dead until then.
Yeah, like exactly.
You have plenty of hope.
All my lineups can be dead, and which they will likely be. Like I said, I already have 3 of 13 dead. So all of my lineups can be dead, but at least I will have one glimmer of hope until Sunday afternoon when I see the lineup of that game.
Yeah. Before we get into Erling Haaland, thank you everybody who has joined us on the chat. We got Misaki, Chris Quirk, Bald Sherlock with the Unai Emery. Good evening. That's still one of my favorite videos that goes around. John Andrews. We got Quinny, Genesis. Wow, we got a lot of people here. So thank you everyone. Yesway Jose. Saw AXA there.
Here we go. I got another lineup dead, Laird. Marseille somehow has conceded twice already in 10 minutes. So my other priority lineup, but hey, I still got the gank game on Saturday. Like you're looking up or on Sunday, I mean.
So I'm gonna blame and give credit to Quinny for pushing me towards Marseille because he was like, they're not gonna give up a goal in February.
Yeah, well,
and I'm like looking at the schedule, I'm like, you're right, they're not going to. And then that Lyon game got pushed there. Is that who it was? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they lost that one, and now, oh, that's great. Is it really 2-0 already?
Down 2-0 at 10 minutes. Actually, he did not get an error. He's just on 5.5, so I expected he maybe had got an error, but he did not. So, yeah, not looking great for that lineup. So I guess my Cruz and Lewandowski would have been better utilized in the weekly special. I don't like guys playing on Friday. I'm gonna be honest. I hate guys playing on Friday because it's realistically like nothing good comes out of it. It's just like, is your lineup still alive? Or like, because if you're like this lineup, like that lineup's like stone dead as of now. And then like my Challenger Europe Rare Pro lineup has Morioka in it. He looks terrible after 25 minutes too.
I don't know actually if it's better if you have like a lineup on Friday that crushes. Because it's just like, there's so much that can happen until then, whether you have all 5 guys or just, you have 2 or 3 really good scores. I captain Morioka.
If you have a stack, it's okay. Because then like if everyone smashes, you're like, woo.
Yeah. This one's really funny. Don't look back in angers, even though it's
correct, Chris. That's why they were originally on Sundays, because of the Europa League. Exactly.
Yeah. Europa Conference League, right? Or were they in Europa?
They were in Europa, which is, I was talking to someone about them recently. They are in a really good spot because they're like right outside the top 8. But if they win enough to get I don't think they can get.
You want them in Conference League.
Exactly. I don't think not even just Conference League. You want them in that playoff where they get 6 games, but you want them in that play like right now. So if things go as expected, in my opinion, they will be in the 5 to 8 range where the winner goes to the Conference League. The 5 to 8 range right now, well, before this game was Charleroi, Ghent, Mechelen, and Cercle Bruges. So realistically, you replace Cercle Bruges with Genk. So you're talking you get 4 games against Charleroi, Mechlin, and Ghent. Like 4 of those games are really positive games. Ghent isn't as great as the other 2, but like those are 4 really good games. And then like Europa Conference League, they could actually be pretty good in the Europa Conference League. So they are in a pretty good spot right now to get all that you want out of them. But they do need to obviously string together some wins, or you're going to miss out on those 6 games. You're going to miss out on your Europe next year entirely. So
yeah.
But
That's certainly
they're right now, they're 2 points behind Cercle Bruges with 2 games in hand. And like they play like Zolt, they play Leuven, they play Mechlin, they play Kortrijk, they play Cercle Bruges, they played STVV, they play Eupen, they play Serang to end the season. Like the only teams they play
they should get there.
Yeah, the only teams that they play at the end of the season in the last 11 that aren't that good are they do play Bruges and they do play Anderlecht. But like outside of that, the 9 games are really winnable, or not winnable, but like really solid opportunities. And like quite a few of those games are at home as well.
Right. But we say that again about a team that has like grossly underperformed this season.
Correct. So like, I mean, they still are in a good spot because like I said, they're at 32 points. Cercle and Kortrijk are at 34, but they both have played 2 extra games than Genk.
Yeah.
So
there's
Genk
hope.
Is in a good spot to produce what you want. It's just whether or not they can get that.
Yeah, right. Before then, this John Andrews, don't look back in angers, they hurt Marseille. That's like literally that line will be stuck in my head all day now. So thank you, John, for that. All right, Zora is here, and he would have come up in conversation anyway because he just crapped all over this Erling Haaland unique purchase. And it felt like a lot of people who currently compete in D1 were not the biggest fans of the purchase by Zema Blue at 265 ETH. And they all had some different that was actually a pretty consistent reason of why they didn't think it was a great purchase. But you and I talked about this, and you and I don't agree on everything, particularly when it comes to things like this. But we actually agreed on how we looked at this purchase, specifically by Zema Blue. Do you want to explain why why you weren't as negative about it as everyone else who plays in D1 at least?
Yeah, so let's remove the price, right? Let's remove the 265. The 265 part doesn't matter. That's a whole nother discussion, I think, whether or not 265 was too much, or thoughts on that. But like in terms of D1, people are acting like Zema Blue can't get into D1 or can't play and compete in D1. He has Haaland now. He has Bastoni. Like those are 2 elite level cards that can be played in either champ or U23 D1 right now.
Yep.
Getting other pieces is just not the most difficult per se. Like, yes, does he have like maybe the full base to support it today? No, but he could easily put together, if he puts in another, let's say 50 ETH, he can easily run out an elite level team in that division and really compete with people. So like, I don't understand why. I do understand why people are saying like, I would rather someone else or him get it than someone else. But the thing is, like, if Carapoo gets him, Carapoo's sitting a really good player to not play him. So like, it's not really a massive involvement to Carapoo's lineup. If Zema gets a whole lineup and throws in all of a sudden, like he has like, let's hypothetically say he got like Skriniar unique, and like all of a sudden you see Zema Blue with Haaland, someone at mid, Skriniar unique, Bastoni unique, Handanovic unique. That's sure going to cause problems in D1 from someone that was literally non-existent. So I don't agree with what people were saying in terms of like him getting it is good for them, or like the fact that he doesn't have a D1 presence per se is a positive. I think that's pretty dangerous for him to be now in play in D1, because he's going to be. There's realistically no shot for him not to be unless he doesn't spend the 30 to 50 ETH to get there, which I mean would be shocking, but we have seen other people not protect elite level cards like that, Laird. So maybe that will happen. But I think so. But 265 to me is a bit much, but that's just because like I look at things very heavily on what you can generate from SO5. And I think SO5, obviously paying off 265 is going to take a long time to pay that off.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like I think over 2/3 of the value has to be viewed as collectability, realistically.
Yeah. So there was a few things that you touched on that I'm going to kind of echo, but one of which is the response of like, well, he can't compete in D1 with Haaland right now. And my response is if he thinks that Haaland is the best player in the world or will be soon, and his either champion Europe D1 or U23 D1 plan is I'm going to build with Haaland and add pieces. You're never going to get Haaland cheaper. Like if somebody else, like if Mark YNWA won Haaland at 241, he's not selling at 265. Like you're not going to get that card for anything remotely close to whatever it auctions for. And if your plan, which doesn't have to begin today, like we talk, every Sorare podcast talks about like being patient with purchases, and obviously when you spend 265 ETH, you'd like to start getting returns earlier rather than later. But like, there's nothing to say that he doesn't have to compete, that he has, or nothing to say he has to compete right away. And so obviously, like there were the exact same responses when he got the Bastoni. They're like, well, he doesn't have a, he has no other U23s or Champion Europe uniques. Like it doesn't matter. It's a bad, person to go for it. But like, if the plan was like, let me get Bastoni, then I'll get Haaland and I'll get whoever else. Like, just because the plan is not set today doesn't mean that the plan won't work. And I honestly believe that if Sorare continues to grow, somebody at some point is going to want that card. And obviously, whoever wants it will have to pay a lot for it. But they will never be able to buy that card for 265 again. And so, like, I think it's easy to think that they can sell that card for more than they bought it at some point in the future. But and it doesn't have to be in the short term. And so I agree with you that a lot of the value comes from collectability. But theoretically, you can go back and forth of whether that card is more valuable in U23 or Champion Europe. But presumably, and I kind of laugh at people who say this, but like presumably they have one of the top Champion Europe forwards for 10 years.
Yeah.
And so like the ROI from an SO5 perspective on a card like Haaland is attainable on a much longer term than Lewandowski or Nabil Fekir, like guys like that. Like you just obviously you have to make up more, but you have a much longer time frame for it. And so the way that I was just looking at it is if the like we should all have plans that we like aspire to. And if their plan was like, I want to get the Haaland unique, this is the cheapest they'll ever get it.
Possibly it could end up falling back. Like it could drop. We don't know that perspective of things. Realistically speaking, like in theory, yes, it would be the cheapest they could ever get it. But Zora, I would bet that if I could set his lineups and decide where it would go. So I would bet that he would be able to win a D1 with a Haaland by the end of the year. Are you talking the year or like the next 2 months?
It's at end of season.
End of season he might not because isn't Haaland injured right now?
Yeah.
Why did Zema play him in U23 D1? Isn't he injured? I legit don't have a Haaland, so I am not familiar.
Those are the cards he has.
But yeah, but that's a nice little waste of other good cards. I don't know. People make so many egregious mistakes. I can't even fathom it.
I just think that looking at it only from an SO5 ROI is absurd.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I mean, because realistically speaking, like let's say you are viewing it as a pure SO5 investment, and let's say he scores 25% of the points on average of a team. So you realistically are saying that he's going to generate like, let's say you have a 500 ETH team and he's half of it. You still have to generate so much from a SO5 perspective for it to make sense. Like you have to view it as both, which I mean, like That's the nice thing with Sorare is that there are so many different options for people to view
Mhm.
value in things, and there is no right answer. Obviously, the way everyone views things, like Axe is in chat. Axe loves the 1 of 100s, 1 of 10s. He values that severely over what everyone else values it at. That's why he goes and gets those cards. I don't care about that like at all. Now that said, if I had those cards, I do charge more because duh. But I don't care about them. I'm not going out and
Sure.
actually trying to buy them. But there's tons of validity in that. There's tons of validity in buying the 1 of 100, 1 of 10 card. There's tons of validity in buying a special edition card or like an autograph card of someone. Like there's so many different ideas and so many different things that make sense. The only thing that I can be certain of is SO5 value. That's like the one thing I can sort of be like, I can generate this to pay off this player for this amount, yada, yada, yada. I can't depend on the collectability of a card per se as much as I can on the SO5. If I buy a card, like all my buys generally are with thoughts of I can probably generate at least half of that card's value back in 1 year, hopefully more. And then anything above that is just paying that card off even further. So that's kind of like how I go about buying cards. I want to generally within 1 year pay off about half of that card with what I paid. Hopefully that over the preceding years, I can obviously continue getting generation from them. And then I can sell them for a price that hopefully is more than what I paid as well.
Yeah. So somebody brought up in chat, I would say Dimmy, but it could be Dime. I don't know. Question is also, do real collectors really want to buy cards in the future that they didn't buy at auction themselves?
Yeah, I think they're fine with that. It's no different than like crypto punks and stuff being bought. Like people are fine buying and selling those off the market. There's definitely some validity with like first owned cards, and like people do like being first owned cards, but like there's hypothetically speaking, let's say that Haaland transfers this year. There will never be another Dortmund Haaland. Let's say you're a Dortmund fan. You might want that Dortmund version of him.
Yep.
So again, like that's another thing. You can look at that in a bunch of different ways. Like people view that type of stuff all sorts of different ways. And there again is no right or wrong answer. It's just however that individual person looks at it.
Yep. Yep. I think that's the way that you have to look at it. That I mean, it's also just the first on the platform. And obviously if he's playing for 10, 15 years in covered leagues, then we're going to have 10 or 15 Haalands. And obviously none of them are going to go at this price anyway. But I don't know. I think I think the collectible aspect is just not something that we can easily say is right or wrong, because we don't, we know that 265 is a lot of money right now, but we don't know what it's going to go for in the future. I think there's an argument that is being made that the 265 could be put elsewhere, not even in Sorare, but elsewhere for returns. And I'm sure if you spent 265 ETH on a bunch of random NFTs, one of them might turn out to be worth 500 ETH at one point, but this one could be worth 500 ETH at one point. Like we don't know. And so, I mean, I think there's an argument that you just buy what you know, and Sorare, so you buy this one.
Yep. I think there's again, that was part of Zura's argument. Zura's argument was, well, first of all, Zura doesn't think he's that good. He doesn't
Correct.
think he's justifiable of the price tag and like being up there with Mbappe. So that's first of all from Zura's perspective. His other perspective was you could do better than dump 265 on Sorare. And from if you're looking at purely SO5 standpoint, you can surely do better than buying a Haaland with 265 ETH. You could do a lot with that on Sorare and generate a ETH from a SO5 perspective.
Yep.
However, you're not going to generate as much in terms of utility or in terms of collectability as you will with the Haaland unique. So it is a very interesting situation and something that we don't have any idea on the long term. Like realistically speaking, I think I think because of the age of Haaland, so like I said, like I tried to generate like half the return within 1 year. But if players that young, you can obviously like hope to get less.
Sure.
So if I say I want to generate like let's say 20% back on Haaland this year from an SO5 perspective, I think that like my SO5 valuation on him maybe would have been like somewhere between 75 and 100. Like I think you could probably generate 15 to 20 off him purely in like a really good situation.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know about Ronaldo Unique Nanzo because Cam and Burt lost a lot of ETH in the situation. I think he got better fiat. I don't remember. The golden auctions thing was a disaster, and all those.
No, that was a different one. That was
all those offsite things were
bonds.
disaster. I think he got like no traction from anything offsite. So I don't even know what all he made from that. But like, it's the thing. Like anyone comes around and something could be collectible, and someone could pay a massive amount for, or they could not. It's just you're betting on the collectability. I just don't. I think from a pure SO5 perspective, I think Haaland's value was like 75 to 100. So like that's why maybe even less, maybe like 60 to 100 or 60 to 80. So like realistically speaking, I think like at least like 2/3 of the value or more is viewed as collectability from my perspective. But like Zema, I have no idea what Zema's thinking. Maybe Zema's thinking like this is all pure collective or SO5 value over 10 years. I'm gonna generate 265 ETH and pay it off, and then I have the best card there, period, as collectible too. So it could be like he could view it in a totally different way, and you could make arguments for and against any of the ways. Just none of them have a true answer, which is why, like, I personally, I always like dealing in black and white on a lot of things, especially within Sorare. I like to view things as like good or bad, not tons of in between options. There is obviously, but it's harder to wrap my brain around things when it's like I could talk to 10 people, they could give me 10 different thoughts on this Haaland card, and all of them could be valid. Whereas, like, I can sit there and look at a line and be like, oh, you played this guy that's rolled out, that's bad. Or like, you bought this card for this price because of these reasons. I'd be like, yeah, that's good and that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think one of the things that I thought was odd, and part of it was some of the people who he's obviously going to be competing against in D1 saying like, boy, then my purchase of X player for, 5 ETH looks pretty good. And it's like, well, that doesn't matter. But what I thought was kind of interesting was how many people were poor or have had negative opinions of the purchase because of their other cards, excuse me. So they're like, they can't compete. So like, it's a waste. But like if YNWA bought like one at 241, which is an absurd price, people would be like, yeah, that's a good one because he has the cards to surround it. But like he has the cards now, but that doesn't mean that Zema Blue can't have the cards necessary like in August. Like it doesn't even have to be the rest of this season. Yeah. Like it could be in August, all of a sudden you look up and you're like, oh my God, there's like, 5, whatever it is, Champion Europe or U23 uniques. And we're just like, oh, that lineup is legit now.
Correct.
It's as simple as that. Like, what if they buy the next Mbappe one?
Well, like, that's a good thing, and that makes sense. What Zora is saying about YNWA putting out 241, knowing that Roxy deposited 275, so like he blocked out Roxy, who he didn't want to block out, but didn't block out, or he wanted to force. Basically, they wanted to pay someone to pay that price. Like, would a YNWA plop down 290 had Roxy came in and put out 260? Because like are you really going to say that like, for example, like you're spending an extra, let's say 55 ETH to block Roxy than you would have to block Zema? Does that really make sense? Because like I'm looking at Bastoni and I'm like, does he really have a better Champ Europe defender that he's going to throw out there week in, week out for the next decade than Bastoni? And I'm probably going to say the answer is no, obviously without looking. Like maybe he does, but it's a situation where I think there are, I think people are underestimating the ability that Zema can surround it and worry about it from an SO5 perspective. Do I think 265 was a lot? Yeah, obviously. It's never a card I would have owned. Like if you gave me Haaland card and told me I could sell it for 250, I'm going to sell it for 250. Like I just it'd be off my roster. Like so many cards like that are just would be out of my gallery so fast if I ever did own them, because I just don't see the merit in them from an SO5 perspective. Zora has talked about our boy Jesus Ferreira. I can just play him and he's just as good as Haaland in 2 of 3 regions. So why do I need Haaland, right? So I think there's validity in that perspective. Similarly, like I could go for 265 ETH. You can realistically play Haaland in All-Star, in Champ, and in U23, right? I could go spend 80 to 90 and get a person for all of those regions that is as good or better. Like I could hypothetically, like, and this just happened recently, right? So let's say that I want coverage for all of them. I go buy Lewandowski for like 35 or whatever he went for recently. I go buy Cecina for like 25 or whatever he went for recently. And then I go buy Jesus Ferreira unique for like 20. Boom, I have coverage lit in all the regions I could have just played Haaland. I have better coverage or similar coverage except for all of them instead of one decision. Then I don't even have to make a decision every week. I literally just have the best option all over the place.
But what stops Zema Blue from owning those cards anyway?
Nothing.
Right.
You could go do that exactly.
Like, regardless of how much money it is, like, there's nothing stopping other than other people who have those cards not wanting to sell.
Correct. And the realistic problem is that all these people cannot block them out over and over again unless they want to pay absurd prices.
Yeah, I think there's just we're not that we're overlooking it, because if you play in the unique market, which I don't, I'm far from it, but the scarcity is a real thing. That, like, if somebody doesn't want to sell a card, you're not getting it, and you're muted. You're not getting like another one until the next season comes out, and then you still have to pay for it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And realistically, like, I'm in the unique market, but I'm in a different unique market because mine is America and Asia.
Yeah, dog's really going crazy here. But yeah, I think there's just there was such a focus on how long it'll take to win 265 ETH worth of cards with this Haaland unique, which there's no rush. Like, that's how I was looking at it. There's just simply no rush to make the Haaland card even from an SO5 perspective, and yet everybody is like focusing on it.
That is true, Nanzo. You can't get it for 20.
Yeah, and you can't even get the Ferrer for 20, right?
That's because Nanzo has it. So that's, yeah. Zora, I also don't agree that the unique market's dead. The unique market's been really flowing lately, in my opinion. There's been a lot of purchases in the unique market from a lot of different people.
I think a lot of it just comes from only one person can have this card now, and nobody else is having it, at least until next season. Although Mark just shared those tweets previously, I don't know, it was yesterday, the day before, of like all of these like super elite uniques that haven't been auctioned yet for this season. Like, the European season doesn't have that much longer to go. And so where does this card fit in terms of like all of the ones that they're going to auction? Like, it should be near the top anyway. So if that's the top, then what's the problem?
I before Mark even tweeted that, I'd been saying there's only been like 5 of the top like 50 or 60 uniques in Champion Europe, which is weird to me because like MLS last year, if you remember, any player worth a shit was literally in the first month of the season. After that, there was nobody worth a shit. Like, the only person I remember that was like not terrible. When I say not terrible, I mean like literally, I'm talking like the top 20 players in each position was gone by the end of the first month of the season. It was absurd. Yeah, my dogs, we have like 5 feet of snow and people are just outside shoveling nonstop, and it's really brutal for them right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just the way that I looked at it was just purely like, you need to consider whatever the collectible aspect is, and there's just no history, because Sorare is so new. There's just no history of like these super elite cards trading hands, no less. Like, it just takes a lot of money to get people to sell these cards. Like, I'm pretty sure Zema Blue put a 500 ETH minimum offers like on Sorare, but I mean, surely they would sell for 500 ETH, but
Yeah, she won't bark if she's sitting here. Usually she'll sit down.
That's all
But
right.
yeah,
Nice dog.
I think that I think that Zora is, I don't know. I disagree with the unique market. I bought some recently. I'm not even talking about like for me buying some recently. I'm talking like I've seen a lot of people like Roxy bought DeMeo unique for 10 and a half ETH the other day. And DeMeo is like a 32-year-old in Asia. Granted, he's a little bit higher, but like I've seen a lot of people buying and selling uniques in different regions recently. So I think that unique market is definitely moving. And the thing is like the only place you can win the best cards is D1. D2 is terrible. D2, we talked about, like you have a chance to win 1-star super rare in all of D2 this weekend where everyone's playing. What's the point? Like if you're not playing in D1, you do not have a shot at getting a Lewandowski, a Neymar, a Messi, a Haaland, etc. It's
Holland,
just
yeah.
not possible. So if you want like that 30 to 40 ETH card potentially, you have to play D1. So I think that there's validity in D1. I don't think D1 is obviously always going to be a bit more difficult because like in order to play D1, you're going to have to spend 10 to 20 ETH. There's no way around that. And that's not attainable for every single person on the platform.
And that's also like the bottom end of the price scale. Like you're not buying the elite players because other people were, have them already and play them. Like the difference in price between playing D1 and being competitive in D1 every week is significantly different. And that even ignoring the 265 for Haaland.
And it depends on the region. Like I can say my D1 Asia team, which is like my main team now, cost when I bought the cards, it probably is a 15 to probably 18 ETH team. But right now it's probably worth like 40 to 45 because the guys I have are really, really good.
Yeah. Actually bring this up, then it's a 20 ETH gamble. You might not win a prize all season with 20 ETH. Like that's
I don't think that's necessarily true depending on who your guys are. But yeah, obviously, like I won a good chunk with my America guys last year, and my America guys stunk.
Yeah, but you won them when they were competing against other America guys.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. Like, I mean, yes,
well,
I have a chance to get a billion cards that are worth a billion cards. No, but like in the summer when it's just America and Asia, if my team costs 20 ETH and I can win like 3 cards a month that are like between 1 and 2 or 1 and 3 ETH, like I can still get there with that team. And realistically, like the way I'm looking at this year is, so I have my teams ready for Asia and America. I have a 3 to 4 month window where it's just them. And I have very good teams now. Like my NYC stack is going to be pretty solid, not the best, but pretty solid, I think. And then my Merino stack is going to be really good. So I think I have like a 3-month window where I have them fighting against just them. I think I realistically can win a card here and there during the European season with these same players. And if I could do something like that, like all of a sudden, like I could be ripping off like a Kimmich. Like all of a sudden I rip off a Kimmich super rare. Now I'm not saying like I'm expecting the likelihood of happening, but if I run the Merino stack, like hypothetically, like my lineup I've been thinking about running right now would be like Merino stack, Carlos Gil super rare, and a forward that's good, like a forward that's like Usami or someone that could average like 55 to 60 points, like Usami, Anderson, Lopez, whoever I run. So like you're telling me if I run that lineup 15 times during the European season, I won't get a card. I find that hard to believe, right? Like that lineup's good enough to get a card here and there. So I just got to decide, obviously, like what I'm going to do with it. And I'm just going to take every week by week, and decide like where to put my lineups, what makes the most sense, stuff like that.
Would you be overly surprised if that didn't win a card during the European season? Like
No,
realistically,
it's only 15 weeks, and there are really good lineups, obviously, in All Star. But I don't know how many cards are going to be given out either, because the prize pools are so stupid and they make no sense. Last year they gave out. I actually looked at this. I forget who it was. I was just talking about it yesterday. I won Almendra, so I have an Almendra. I got 7th in America D1 and got Almendra. Wow. They gave out 7 cards. I'm not saying they're going to give out 7 cards this year, but like I could realistically get I could realistically win a card. Like they give out like 5 cards, and I run that lineup 15 times, and there's like 50 entrants, and they give out 5 cards in All-Star 1. I would think I would get a card or 2 at least in the season, but I'm also maybe in that situation sacrificing Asia. So like if I ran that lineup in Asia, all of a sudden maybe I would have won like 8 cards. So I'm gonna play it by ear, see what happens. But I've already recouped half of the investment I put into D1 already, without even including what the cards are worth, and like I still have some rewards I haven't like fully attributed value because the value isn't what I want. Like I won an Almendra, and at the time he was like 0.3, and I was like, I'm not selling this guy. He's actually pretty good. He just needs a consistent run of play, but like he's a 21-year-old midfielder that is pretty solid. Like realistically, I think this summer that could be a 2 or 3 ETH card, and then I'll sell it and attribute that to my D1 situation. But like, so my entire D1 investment is 60 or 55 ETH. My entire D1 investment is 55 ETH. I have returned, in terms of like, I have hard sold 18 ETH worth of cards, and I still have a Taiyo Koga super rare, a Zion Suzuki super rare, a Nicholas De La Cruz super rare, and an Almendra super rare. I could probably get 3 with that. So like I just spent another 12 or so this week. So like before this, it was like I had spent 40-ish and I had recouped like 20-ish. Now I've spent like 55. But so my hope for this year is that like I can recoup like another 20 or so. And then all of a sudden going into next year, I've recouped, let's say 70, 80% of my team's value with the team attack. Like, for example, another thing is I paid for Takawaka unique, I paid 1.7, and I got offered this week like 8 for it, and Langrak, who's worse than him in every way, sold for 6. So like I'm pretty sure I could sell that card for 8 to 10 ETH right now if I wanted to, like without problem. And I paid 1.5 for it. So like there's quite a bit of value within the unique market. It's just the risk is high. Like a good example of that, like I bought Yamil Assad last year. I bought 2 guys last year that I basically needed them to be able to enter Division 1. First one was Yamil Assad. I generated, I think, 0 rewards with him or close to it, and I paid 2.7, and now he's in Chile, and the card's probably I couldn't get a half an ETH for. But I also bought an Espinoza, who I ended up using as that entry ticket into D1. My Espinoza card has like 8 to 10 ETH worth of generated revenue on it. And I paid like 3 ETH for it. And I don't even know if I could sell it. That's how not great the card is. I don't know if I could recoup the exact ETH amount, but he's generated like 10 ETH worth of prizes for it, so he doesn't need to.
Not on its own though, like within lineups that did that.
Correct. So like, but like, let's say you attribute him to 20% of it. Like he's generated 2 ETH worth of value from himself. I don't need to get 3 ETH worth back. I realistically only need to get 1 ETH worth, which I could definitely sell him probably for 1 to 1.5 ETH. But again,
I think you have to at least admit that you're excluding the 2 most valuable regions.
I am. I'm excluding Champion Europe. Well, I'm not really excluding U23. I do have U23 pieces. It just hasn't worked out well enough for me.
I just means in terms of that plan, like that plan with that budget is difficult in Champion Europe and U23.
Correct. Exactly.
U23 is probably a little easier in the summer.
I could. Well, I did the building. Like I think you could build a challenger team for like 30, 40 ETH. But again, like you're talking 30, 40 ETH that could be used elsewhere. And like I do have other things I would like to fill that I don't have the availability. What's your next plan? Like what's your next progression move? Because I know we're obviously at different stages with where we go, but you're always doing different things as well to progress.
Yeah, I'm just going to buy the next Mbappe unique.
Duh, facts.
I'm kind of in a weird spot because like I haven't really won anything in forever, and a lot of it is just like my better cards are MLS, so I need MLS to come back. So it's like I keep going back and forth of like, do I invest more now so that I can try to win more now, or do I just wait? And waiting is definitely the right answer, and so I just keep spending more money.
Yep. I told you, this was the first time I have deposited in 9 months. I had not
I haven't
deposited.
deposited. I'm not going to
I
that
put
point
in
then.
10 ETH 9 months ago, and that 10 ETH had bought me like 100 ETH worth of cards in terms of winning, buying, and different things because I've
Yep.
just won, sold, etc. I deposited 5 ETH to so that I had a little bit of a balance. Yeah, like so of that 10 ETH, I just spent like 10 ETH to buy those players and
Yep.
just put in a little bit more so I had some backup. As well. But like, so yeah, I wouldn't say that it's a gamble. D1 isn't like a pure gamble, but there's a lot of variance in it because you could, if you eat some injuries or you eat some misfortune and you can't protect against it, you're going to be kind of screwed. Like you said, like you keep buying cards to keep improving. I do the same thing. Like I do the exact same. Like I've been buying cards over the last 9 months to continuously improve my team so that I can keep getting better in certain regions. Obviously, that region generally is Division 2 or Division 3. I mean,
3. Yeah.
but yeah, 100%. Like that's all I've been doing.
Yeah. Do you think it's if you have a larger budget that you're actually better off trying to effectively budget your way into D1 as opposed to investing in D2?
Yeah, I wouldn't even touch D2 realistically. The issue is so like the progression on Sorare does work from the perspective of like you buy rares for D4, then you have too many rares in D4, so you go into D3 and buy super rares. Then you end up with too many super rares that you're not using them all efficiently in D3, so you move into D2. So
Right.
there is a progression from that perspective. There are obviously progression issues within Sorare, but the idea behind it does still work to some extent. Right now, D3 is D1 might be the best. If D3 or D1 is the best, D4 is the next best, and I don't know where D5 is because I don't play it. I don't focus on it. You could tell me where you think D5 is. And then D2 is so far behind every other division, it's not even funny.
Well, I was going to say like I was kind of, or I still am, kind of in this middle ground of like, do I, like, I bought enough MLS super rares to play D2 last year. I don't have a goal, so I play a rare goalie. So theoretically, like, I'm like, do I buy a MLS super rare goalie for point 0.6, point 0.7, or do I put all of that in limiteds and compete with some of the best cards and try to win limited cards? And like, based on the rewards, the limited cards make more sense. And like when D5 makes more sense than D2,
That's an
that's
issue.
that's weird.
Morioka, by the way, subbed off injured at halftime. So this week's going really well. But again, I have the gank stack on Sunday. Let's go.
I ended up captaining Morioka over Messi in my
I think there's a
D5.
pretty good chance I'm eliminated from every single SorareData Cup this week, which is impressive with my gallery. But
I thought you were eliminated last week.
well, there's a lot of them.
I know.
So I am now an underdog. Well, the league, I actually do well in the league. The league I do well in, which makes sense.
I'm playing Pyrrhus in the league. I'm going to get absolutely destroyed.
I am probably well. So I don't know. So the person I did well. So the problem is I captained Morioka somewhere. I forget where. So the SorareData Cup, or no, I'm eliminated from that. Never mind. The Challenger Europe lineup. My opponent played Noah Lang, so assuming he's out, Morioka did beat Noah Lang, so I have a chance there. And then the other cup is the Jupiler Cup, which I've had a really so far I got a free win, and then I lost in advance, so I'm solid so far there.
Thanks for
But
playing.
but I also have Morioka there, and he does not. So it is not looking great for me in any of those. I think it actually, and then in the SorareData League this week, I did captain Morioka, so that is unfortunate for me.
So I actually want to talk about Morioka for a second because he was on like a run earlier. I'm trying to see when it was, maybe December.
Yeah, the answer is yes. I think you should sell him at this point. Like I
mean, I have a Morioka limited, and I got it like low enough that it doesn't even make sense for me to sell it.
Right.
But there were people with rares, and actually, it was Quinny who had one. He won one, and I remember he like immediately sold it, and I'm like, that just seems crazy to me that you would like sell a guy that was doing that well, and just like, yeah, I don't want him anymore. And it was like the combination of there's no way his scores are sustainable, and people are paying as if the scores are sustainable, and like that's when you should sell. And I'm like, no, no, no. And then I'm like, no, you're right. That is exactly when you sell. And he's just like, this is his rare chart that like obviously moved up. And I think you even were one of the ones who pointed out to me that like the scores, they're coming down, and like it's this range here. Apologies for those listening. You know, he's basically went from 72 to 100 from game week 190-ish to 215. But I'm having this situation slightly with Otavio, that I got Otavio significantly less than he's now. I mean, somebody bought him for an ETH the other day, but like his scores are basically as good as they're going to get right now. I should sell him.
Yeah, so I have a take on stuff like that. So like if your gallery's good enough and you can just hold a player, sometimes it is worth having a guy like him that is just a really good player that you can just plug in. Even so, like obviously he hasn't been as hot as earlier in the season, but if you remove this game, he has like one game below 50 in his last 15.
I mean, he's awesome. It's not like he's not.
So like there is a lot of validity in it. That said, like, is he worth 1.5 ETH? No, I don't think so. So like I think you could definitely, like I think he could be a guy you just like, hey, you just ride him into the ground. I think it is also a good selling point. A 1.5 for him, I think, is very favorable, because I just think that there's not a lot of players that are worth 1.5 ETH, and a 30-year-old Japanese guy in Belgium might not be the guy you want to put your hat on from that perspective.
I mean, from an SO5 perspective, it's easy. But like if you consider like the moment he starts to decline, nobody's going to be angling for that. Like Ronaldo cards are still valuable because he's Ronaldo.
Correct.
Morioka scores significantly better than Ronaldo, but as soon as he starts to decline, we're all out.
Correct. And I think there's some it's just like I think it's a really good time to sell him. I think that selling him in this range is really favorable. Like for me, like I'm just gonna hold him because it doesn't do anything for me to sell him prospectively. Like I can just hold him and just run him up. But like realistically speaking, it's a really good time to sell him.
Yeah, like this is a 1 month graph for Otavio, like 0.04.
No way.
Oh, these are limited. Excuse me. Hold on.
You and your limiteds killing me.
I don't know why it defaulted there, but anyway, 0.04 on January 5th, and then like went for an ETH. Now it's like
I will say I actually looked at selling him this week too. Similar reason. I don't think his stuff's sustainable at all. He's not an AA guy. Like a lot of his stuff is based on scoring. Not saying he's not good and can't.
I mean, his all around has been pretty awesome.
His all around has been pretty good, but if you look back to the range where he was not great, and I'm sure his all around wasn't super duper strong. And this isn't anything to him. It's more so like Morioka's at the end of his career. Morioka is going to stay at Charleroi, and then he's going to go back to Japan most likely. Otavio's still young. Otavio could try to take a step up to a champ side and just ride the bench.
Oh yeah.
So like I am not super duper excited about Otavio's longevity. I'm probably gonna ride. I don't see him stopping this season. So like I'm hypothetically, like my plan with Otavio I looked at the other day was to like hold for maybe another month or so, and then probably look to move him on come like mid-March, because realistically speaking, also like Champs League starting back up, and there's only so many teams that are in Champs League. And I'm not saying he's going to be a great option, because obviously he's not going to be most likely, but he's at least someone you can put out there if you need someone, which is valuable to some extent.
Yeah. Zora is bringing up Mbokani, who I think predated both of us, but Mbokani was like the best player on the platform.
Was he?
And then was not.
You ready for the PSU pump of the week?
Let's hear it.
So this week, I got sold by a few people on this person. I think he's a really good option. So it's King's Kangwa.
Oh, Trip and V just bought him.
Yeah, so I talked to Trippin. Our buddy Durr was talking about him. Nifty actually has his unique, and I had been looking at him anyways. The dude's all-around scores are unbelievable. His issue is that one, he's in Russia, and two, Russia's racist. That's those are like the issues. So he got in a major fight with a coach that led to all the DNPs. But when he plays, he absolutely smacks all around. Like,
Yeah,
look, if you look through his all around, like, look at this all around production.
Jeez, 41.6.
Yeah, just straight. And like, we're not even talking, like, they got dumped on by Moscow 5-1, and he put up 56.5. And you scroll back, like, keep going down further and look at what he did in the last set of games, like before he went through that big run of DNPs. Like, you have a 52 AA, you have a 43 AA, you have like a lot of 25, 29, 20s in the AAs. And he also takes sets, and he's only 22. So this is a guy that, like, I think if he, first of all, so the issues with him are those two that I just said. Also, they're like near the relegation line. So there's a chance they get relegated, and that would obviously be a negative for him.
I'd say so.
But he could also transfer elsewhere and be really good, or he could transfer elsewhere and just be dead, and you'll never see him again. But like, if you look at like comparable guys, and so here's the issue, right? It's hard to fully compare him because there's a lot of things with it. But let's pretend he's a 61 L15 guy that is 22 years of age. So like, look at Zemansky. Zemansky's rare is double it, and he's in Russia too. Like, they're similar stat lines. Hodemaker doesn't work because he's too old. Tanaka is dead. Kishimoto, like, all these guys are too old realistically. You look at Omer, like, his super rare is up there. He's not a guy that's playing every single game either. Almendra, guy I just talked about, Almendra. He's a guy that like probably will go up there. So I think that King Kangwa is a guy that could really start popping. And if he comes back and let's say he finishes out the season in Russia and plays like another 10 games where he is drilling some solid score lines. And like, you look at him too, like, his L15 is brought down by some sub games.
Right.
So like, his L15 is better than 61. It's like 65 to 70 realistically. So I think
it's a cool card too.
Axe is saying don't fall into the Omer trap. Yeah, there's a reason I bought King's Kangwa, not Omer, but was just giving it. But yeah, like, this 0.45, like, if this guy becomes what he's been, if he just maintains what he's been doing, this guy's like close to a 1 ETH card, I think, due to his age and what he can produce for you.
Do you like him more or less than Vinicius Souza?
He is similar, except for he has better decisive actions, most likely due to him having set pieces. Souza has better all-around game. Souza's a great example. Souza's like probably close to a 1 ETH card, and they're pretty similar in terms of like what you get. The issue with Souza is obviously Souza's on loan from a Division 2 side in Belgium, but like, he's very similar. His all-around game is better. He doesn't really get much on the decisive game, but that's kind of why I like Kangwa, right? If you got a guy that has a 30 to 35 all-around, then he gets a decisive.
Oh yeah, he's banging 9,500.
That's 90 to 100. That's where you're really making your dollars.
Yeah.
So like, that's why I think Kangwa has a lot of upside in terms of like what he's at.
I like it. That's fun.
I don't have any U23 goalies this week because I ran into my I'm not. Souza's probably better in general, but I don't care about actual football.
Yeah, you don't care.
I don't give a shit. I care about what people produce from an SO5 perspective.
Right.
I don't have any other great. Our normal U23 goalie discussion. Don't have much to add on it because I had to spend all week dealing with my Merino stack getting obliterated and covering that. So I don't really have tons of a breakdown on the U23 goalie market for this week.
That's all right. We can pretend that it's just a U23 show and King's
Kangwa
just to cover us
from that perspective this week. I guess I did buy, since our last show, Pepe Bonnet, who
I was gonna buy him too.
Yeah, I think I was one of the higher ones, but anyways, he's on Ren, and he's 18, but he already plays the cup games for them already, so I'm pretty sure he'll get a shot in the next couple years, and he's 18. I forget when his actual birth date is.
He didn't get the call though when Gomes left. Is the bummer.
I know that would have been fantastic. So yeah, so he's like 0.1 right now, and he is going to have his birthday in a couple weeks. But he's got such a long runway at U23. I would assume he gets a shot in the next 2 years somewhere.
Yeah.
I literally know nothing else about him other than just the basics of like everything lines up to him getting a chance somewhere at some point in the next couple of years.
I mean, that's what you want.
Yeah, Axel, I would be more pissed about the whole Thiago Martin situation if it didn't like just lump me into another stack. And
I was gonna say it fell right into another one.
I got fucked with Martin's getting screwed over, but then it also benefited me because Eduardo, I think, is like Eduardo's gonna monster, and that's like Eduardo's already elite, and like I gotta look at Eduardo. I haven't looked at him recently. I got an offer of like 2.5 ETH for him the other day. I was like, no, I can't do it. It wasn't that much. I think it was like 1.5 actually. But like, I think you might be looking at a guy that's like a 65 to 70 average person. And like they're a good team. He gets midweek utility. It's just such a nut card.
Yeah, it is.
I really wanted his unique. I just couldn't make it happen. That might be something I'd try to look at this year if I could buy his unique from Marinos.
There we go. XMK was asking us to speculate on the rewards and progress bar, and I don't even want to do that.
I don't want to do it. It should have been months ago, and the fact that it hasn't happened is the progress bar. I think they bagged for the time being. Like I don't think they care as much about the progress bar.
I agree.
Which is probably a good thing. I think the progress bar, based on how many mistakes they were making, I think the progress bar had a good chance to end the platform. I think they had a good chance to screw that up bad enough that it was going to be the end. Hate to say that, but like it just makes sense, right? Like
yeah,
it makes
I don't
sense.
think it's yeah. I don't
think it could have been really bad, the progress bar.
It could be.
But reward, yeah, I think the progress bar, like look, like progress bar is dead in the water. I was actually talking to someone about this recently. The legends. What I saw
some in the auction market yesterday.
They're still there, but they said they were giving them immediate utility, and we haven't heard a thing in months. I was the original person that said they were stupid and made no sense. I know that other people thought they were super cool, and I remember telling you, like, this is the dumbest thing. Someone was like, how cool is this? I'm like, it's literally the dumbest announcement since I've been on the platform, and it wasn't close. But that's to me, like, not to other people. Like, to me, it was just really stupid. The Legends clubs are playing. Yeah, I mean, most all the Legends they've done have been like played for Ajax or played for Inter Milan.
Yeah,
like these guys are playing. There's just nothing with it because here's the thing, and this is what I said from the beginning. I don't understand how you would incorporate them. You're going to put them on the team, and then the best defender, his score goes to your player. And there's like 20 Legends, so everyone just is going to overlap every single Legend and get the same score. It made no sense. The whole Legends thing made absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Not our job to figure out how to make them work.
I would guess, based on how things revolve around Sorare, whatever they do from a rewards perspective, which actually, if you watch back a couple of weeks ago, Laird thinks they have fixed the rewards and just aren't announcing anything. Correct?
I said that?
I think you said that they did stuff with the rewards and haven't announced anything.
Oh, well, the rewards are definitely different.
Yes. The rewards are different.
But I don't think that. I think they're still tinkering. I don't think they have a plan yet.
So my guess is they're going to use America as like a guinea pig again, like they did last year, where America just gets boned. And then at the start of next season, they will announce whatever they're going to do or whatever they have done.
Yeah. No, I think that's reasonable. Yeah.
It's not Philly. It's not about like you owning a player worth 1 ETH that doesn't make sense. It's about owning a player that doesn't play. That's like a long-term hold that's worth a certain amount. So like, for example, if you have let's say your gallery is worth 2 ETH and you own a Ito and he's 1 ETH. I assume Ito's up near 1 ETH now. Yeah. And let's say you own an Ito 1 ETH, that's fine. You just can't have a gallery worth 2 ETH and you have a 1 ETH card that just doesn't play and you're buying him for the future. Someone was buying, forget who the card was. Someone was buying someone recently and the guy just isn't going to play. And it's like, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, Gabby's a great example. Fofana's coming back to training.
Yeah, he's back.
He's apparently back in training this week, is what I heard.
That's right. I saw it too. Yeah,
I'll believe that when I see it, because I would like to get him back in the fold. I really could use another good U23 super rare defender in Champion Europe. So yeah, it's not about a player being worth X amount of your gallery and he's playing and producing for you. It's about having a guy that you're holding for future value. Like, for example, I'll give good examples of this. I've been buying a lot of like 0.1 ETH U23 goalies recently. That Pepe Bonet I bought Nicholas Polster. I bought Marcel Kostenbauer. I bought Arnie Schultz. Like, I bought all these guys are like between like 0.05 and 0.1 ETH. If my gallery was like a 10 ETH gallery, I would never buy those guys. I would never tie up that ETH in a guy like that.
Yep, I think that's the right.
Luckily, I just answered that question. I didn't even read the question. I answered it without it. I read your mind. I read your mind. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying like don't buy any of them, but I would definitely not tie up much ETH in like that. If you have a team that makes sense, or you have a really strong conviction someone's going to start, that's fine. But like, I have been buying guys that I have no idea when they're going to start. I just expect it sometime over the next 2 or 3 years. And I viewed it as a store of value also, where like I bought a Pepe Bonet, and I'm pretty sure if I need to sell him, I could go sell him for pretty much exactly what I bought tomorrow. So from that perspective, yeah, exactly. You got like a
Kaisers, yeah,
start, and that was huge for you. Like, I also got a De Kaiser, and it was huge for me, which is why I again went back into the process of buying that stuff. I already bought a Chevalier. I bought him last year before he got screwed over, Zora, on your recommendation. I wanted to get his super rare, but there's really no way to get Chevalier super rare. But yeah, so like realistically speaking, if you are very confident someone's going to start in the immediate future, I think that it makes sense. I think that you could get it. And I think that there's some validity in doing some of your buying with that stuff. The way I would look at it is sort of like every time you generate like an ETH worth of rewards and you sell it, maybe buy like a U23 goalie that's 0.05 to 1.
Right.
Yeah. And so like all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to spend 10% of what I earned on a U23 goalie with the hopes that he ends up playing in the near future.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Chevalier actually selling at 0.5 ETH, that seems wild to me, unless you're talking to literally everyone on the platform. Mm-hmm. I haven't heard anyone say anything about Chevalier other than you.
Yeah, that seems like a crazy price for somebody not playing at all.
Yeah, because especially when you don't know if he's going to play or not.
Right.
Yeah, Zora, he's not 0.5. His last sale was 0.325, which still is really high. And his low offer right now is 0.95. So like realistically, like, yeah, you're not probably getting him for under 0.5. But for example, like we talked about this before, I wouldn't really realistically go buy someone like that. I would rather buy 5 to 10 guys between 0.05 and 0.1. Yeah. Like if you really want a U23 goalie, like just go buy De Kaiser, who's already starting for barely any more than what you'd have to play for Chevalier. It just doesn't make sense to go and tie up stuff in Chevalier. I assume a lot of the people that have Chevalier, Zora, have Chevalier because they have big enough galleries that them having a Chevalier is fine, and they can hold it and withstand it. Like you probably have some people like this, Laird, but just not as many as I do.
Yeah, I do. And they just sit there and rot.
There was a red arrow next to him on sofa, AJ. I think he got injured to some extent. I just don't know what the injury was in terms of Morioka.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't an injury, but yeah, there's the red arrow next to him. But he's been a little weird as of recent. He's been subbing off recently. Speaking of, apparently this is the stream where everyone that I bought uniques off of recently is in. I bought a couple uniques off of Axe. I bought a unique off of AJ.
Yeah, there it is.
All
right, we'll pick up the U23 goalie conversation next week, since it's now a strategy show and not the game week review. But thank you to everybody who joined us in the chat. If you guys wouldn't mind liking the video below, that'd be greatly appreciated. If you are watching the replay, the like is still there as well to take that. And if you are listening to the audio version, if you wouldn't mind rating and reviewing the podcast. Sean and I will be back next week, always talking about some U23 gambles. So if there's anything you want us to touch on, feel free to reach out to us. You can find me on Twitter at Andrew M. Laird. Sean's at PSUFans2, and also available in the Sorare Discord. So feel free to hit us up. Sean, thank you for all that, and I'll talk to you next week.